Hey Weirdos, this is Evan Jarvix with Make Oklahoma Weirder, and this is your local music vlog for the week. As per usual, we're putting this up on a Friday. I'm recording it on a Thursday evening, which means there's a show happening right now. As I'm speaking, I'm not attending it, but it's a big deal because Father John Misty is in town. Doesn't it feel nice to say that? He's not at Cain's, he's here in town. And at the Jones Assembly, some of you are probably there right now, and his opener is none other than Broncho. And Broncho is where I'm going to start this whole thing. Broncho releasing an album this weekend, and that's a big deal. Anything Broncho does at this point is kind of a big deal. This is their fourth album. Their last one, Double Vanity, I thought was a bit of a misstep. Certainly we all supported it, I think, but I don't know, kind of zapped a lot of the energy that really made some of their earlier stuff fun. Of course, their breakout was more or less the Just Enough Hip to Be Woman, which landed them a spot on all sorts of things, really. That particular album had and this is all, if you don't already know Broncho, I'm sure most of you do, but they had that single, Class Historian, yeah, that's what it was called, and got airplay, got featured on a Tinder commercial, and I remember KEXP up in Seattle was really supporting them in the wake of that record, really kind of tastemakers up there. I remember going to St. Louis that year and seeing them just on the cover of one of their free street publications. I mean, they're really, one of these underground kind of garage punk flavored indie rock names, certainly. Lots of reverb on all their music, which I have certain thoughts about, but as a whole, great to have around. I'm glad that they're still here, because a lot of bands will get that kind of notoriety and shoot off to Nashville or wherever, and it's nice to have them around. So shout out to you guys, Broncho, and I wish you the best of luck with your new album, which is solid. There's a music video that they put out about a month ago, and I watched that for sure. It had 2 singles in it. It was kind of a long-form music video. Had a narrative, very directorial, very artistic, long-form music video that kind of featured the band in a really iconic kind of stature, where they weren't necessarily, playing the protagonist. They were almost kind of this ethereal presence in a way, alongside this protagonist. Like they would just be in the video with occasional interaction, but mostly just as observers. But the kind of observers where you're almost certain that they have some control over what's happening. Really interesting video, and I think it probably says a lot about what we can expect on this album, which I have not heard yet, but I'm very excited. I feel like they're finally, as a band, kind of stepping into a more iconic role, in a sense, where they're playing more than just a rock band. Like they're actually kind of, bringing a bit more of an artistic flair to it. So that's exciting, and that's happening this weekend. The album release is happening, like it's being dropped on Friday, so you can probably listen to it right now on your preferred media streaming platform or downloading platform. But I don't want that Broncho album to overshadow everything else that's going on, because there's a lot of things happening. Pretty much going to talk about album releases probably this whole time, because there's so many. Oakley is finally releasing their full-length album, which I talked about them a few weeks ago, and talked about the importance of why it's such a big deal that they're getting this international distribution deal. And alongside that, which I hadn't even really thought about, they've also been getting a lot of press coverage. A lot of reviews have been trickling in on this new album, very positive reviews. So very exciting to see that. It's really nice to see other people around the country get a taste for what we've known for so long. And really excited to finally hear this Oakley album, which I haven't heard because I didn't go to the record release and I didn't get that early copy. So looking forward to that. Gum is dropping their album. It's their first album in 4 years, and If you don't know Gum, they've been around for quite some time now. And you probably don't know them just because they haven't played a ton of shows. They haven't really been that vocal or present on social media, which, is not a bad thing. It's just a matter of, what you prefer to do with your marketing chops. And I think Gum, in a lot of ways, are so well known by a lot of movers and shakers and figures around here that they can rely on that to get the word around. And certainly that has been happening. A lot of the people, the press folks, are fully aware of this Gum record, have heard it already. I have not heard it. I've heard the lead single, which is solid. But they can kind of get away with just dropping 3 Instagram posts and calling it good. Like they mentioned in January, hey, new album this year. A little bit later, hey, it's completely recorded. Here's the master. And then they're like, hey, here's the album release show. Come out. And that's literally all they have to do on Instagram to get the word out. That's pretty impressive. Anyway, that's not a knock against them. It really isn't. But I know I got a message sort of on social media where I was talking about this album coming out this weekend. And somebody was like, wow, I did not know Gum was local. And aside from the confusion where I thought they were talking about a different Gum, we figured out that they weren't. Gum is local. And they are very good. They played Norman Music Fest's main stage a couple years back. But they really haven't done a whole lot since. They've had kind of shows here and there. But I think they've just been really kind of quietly, working on this record, working on other things. I know one of the guys in the band is like a sound engineer, and he's been doing some studio work for other bands. So certainly that's a thing. But yeah, don't sleep on the Gum record. It's going to be good. Based on the single that I heard, you can expect a lot of what makes them so popular with a lot of people. Certainly it's got a really chilled out kind of vibe, really low-key vocals, buzzy bass guitar. I like that they use a lot of auxiliary percussion, like shakers and stuff. I like when rock bands kind of bring in that groove element that's not necessarily Latin or anything, but kind of borrows a bit from that, Anyway, point being, Gum coming out with a record. They got an album release show happening at the Speakeasy. There's plenty more. Desi and Cody up in Tulsa. Big deal. Big Tulsa local artists for sure, dropping their latest album. Their release shows at the Vanguard, which is an excellent Tulsa venue. And I want to mention Saturn. Saturn dropped an album in February, and I've been listening to it off and on since February, but it's finally getting a physical release, and so they're dropping that this Friday, which will be tonight if you're watching this as I drop this video, at Second Friday Art Walk, which of course is, I always say, it's like the place to go if it's a Second Friday. Go to Norman because there's tons of local music all up and down Main Street. And the official showcase always happens at Opolis. It's always free, always all ages. And you've got, this lineup is headlined by Linka and supported by G-Wiz and Saturn. Saturn's kind of the odd man out on this one because Linka and G-Wiz are very kind of pop-oriented, very electronic. And Saturn is very much kind of an alternative rock thing. Definitely on a completely different wavelength, so kind of curious how they landed on this lineup, but very happy for them finally getting to play the Opolis after many years of being a band. And I've been following them for a little while now, and I do like the new EP. I shared some words about the EP that you can find on one of their posts if you want to know a little bit more about their record. But congrats to them. And one thing I want to shout out real quick, I went to a meeting yesterday, and there's a new thing. I'm not going to say a whole lot, but keep your eyes out. Scott Booker and people he's working with, they're up to something. And it's very important for all of you. And it's very interesting what he's got in the pipeline. That's all I'm going to say, but there will be an opportunity for this sort of music exchange that he's putting together. Lots of resources that can really help you as musicians, as an industry, as a part of Oklahoma. Look out for it.